And now we're live.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our bi-weekly Devstream. My name is Matt.
I'm HB.
Well, I was going to introduce you, and you guys fucked it.
Oh.
Well, it's fine. You heard their
You
names,
said
maybe.
the F word.
Whoops.
That's bad.
Almost like we're an adult
You know that
stream.
we're gonna be demonetized in YouTube right away, right?
Just
Good thing that we are not monetized
all
on
you,
YouTube.
all you need to do is just bleep it. Use the seagull sound to bleep every time we say fuck, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Also, blur out all the warden symbols because we're not biased.
There's a reason for that, though.
Warden bias. Yeah. Actually, man, this stream is incredibly warden biased. You're sure.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I didn't even notice that till now.
There's also a blue wall.
What is this? I should have worn my
Oh yeah,
colonial
the
shirt.
the whole office is warden bias because it's blue all around.
Yeah, I mean, I've said that I've been warden biased for a really
We're
long
painting
time.
the office green, Matt. That's
That's
what we're
fine.
gonna
It'll
do.
balance
Yeah.
it out. At the very least. Anyway, how's everybody doing today? How you doing, HB? How you doing, Mark?
Not bad, not bad. We came back from PAX, which was a lot of fun. Thank you for everybody that showed up, either to help out or to go to the to our little
Event.
meetup.
Foxhole event.
The FoxCon.
Foxhole Con.
Not to be confused to actual FoxCon.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
Foxconn is maybe a word. we
That
can't
it
use.
might be used somewhere else.
We'll call it WholeCon.
Oh, that's gonna be fine.
Yeah,
gonna
that's
Talk about being demonetized.
nothing's
Yeah.
gonna go wrong with that.
Yeah, so no, that was a lot of fun. Came back to a fair amount of work because
Yeah.
leaving for a few days and then coming back and not touching the game for like, I don't know, we were away for like almost a week, right, in total.
It was almost a week in total, plus the travel time, and yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's fun.
I was here.
Yeah. Somebody has to work while we have fun.
Well, we've got a hell of a stream ahead of us, so
Probably get started.
We're gonna get
Yeah.
started. The Q&A portion is gonna get cut a little short, but we are gonna answer a couple questions because you guys are gonna have a lot of them. And I'll jump in the Discord after the stream to also clarify anything
Cool.
if I can, because we're not gonna have as much time. So, good community highlights.
Yeah, but before that, I just wanted to showcase something that I thought it was really cool.
Does this counts as community highlights?
Yes.
So just you go.
Sure.
They can't see this anyway. So
There, I flipped the slide.
you flip the slide.
Thank you.
Now it's
Off
official.
screen now. it's
You can
official.
switch to community highlights and come
Look,
back
yep,
if you want.
community highlights, all right, let's go.
Perfect, beautiful. So as I said, I don't know if everybody knows, we went to PAX last week. It was a lot of fun. It was great to seeing everybody. We actually had members of our community help us with the booth. We had
Yeah,
like
a lot of-
streams going on the television and audio, and then we had all the cool things that you guys do online, and we also had things that were done for the booth, like props that were done for the booth from our community. So one of the things, this Warden banner here, this was Stranger Days.
Yes.
He came in full Warden costume, like his whole full attire,
Yeah.
and he also brought the Warden banners. We also had, who was doing the Colonial cosplay?
Colonial cosplay, which I don't recall specifically the individual.
If you're in the chat and you
you're
did
talking about.
colonial cosplay at PAX,
I like
let me know.
the name is like slipped my head right now. He was in the last Foxhole meetup as well.
I know that
Jesus Christ.
Loxin helped us with a lot. At the
Yeah,
booth.
Loxin. And besides that, we also had Loxin making a lot of the props. He made like B mats and
Anklet.
refined maps. Oh yeah, anklet.
Anklet?
Anklet.
There we go. Anklet.
There we go.
So that was really cool, and we also had Loxin. Loxin was just amazing. He helped us out every single day. He helped us make the booth and like just make it look cool with like props that he brought. It was like a fuel barrel, like so many cool. Until the very last day in which he helped us even take down the booth and take some
Yeah.
stuff away. So the guy.
And also some, I think Mr. EV traveled very far to come.
Mr.
as
Evie
well.
came, and another member of the 82DK.
Yeah.
They came from Iceland to see us, and we had a bunch of people from all around North America, coming to see us, and they came to the meetup. It was really cool because we also had people just showing up, and we tried to get. I don't know if you guys can see. We added this little.
Here, I'll grab that from you.
That's fine. I think they can see. I think they can see. Thank you. So we had people come by our booth and sign our little sign. It was really cool. It was really nice. We're really happy with the fact that a lot of people showed up. Caleb, Zangster, Mr. Evie, Anklet, Autopilot, Major Benson, Paper Block, Robert, in real life, Warden, Zunster, Mco, Philip, Viper's wife. It was really, really cool. Helping Hands. Also, they had a lot of things going on the stream. Captain in Arms and like the entire press corps. We had like press corps running in the back all the time. So anyway, it was just really, really cool. Thank you everybody that showed up and showed the support to the game, and even talked to other people that never heard the game and was like just helping us out.
Well, I think one thing that was also cool was that there were certain members of the Foxhole community that we don't usually get to talk to, because there's some players that don't participate on FOD, but they're actually like they play Foxhole a lot.
Yeah.
And it was great to sort of talk to those players as well to get another perspective, because often we're so focused on like FOD and like
absolutely
Reddit. But you have to realize there's a lot of players out there that are also just playing the game, and they're not necessarily like
very heavily
conversation. Yeah.
I had two of the signatures here. These two, Caleb and I forgot the name of the other fellow that came with. They actually mentioned like, well, we follow you guys, but we don't participate very much in FOB. So it was really nice having an opportunity to like shake their hands and talk to them about the game and hear their perspective, and it was just amazing. So thank you everybody that showed up. Thank you everybody that helped, particularly that it was just great seeing everybody, and I hope that we get to see more people like at other events. The one thing that I will say was the event, the after show event that we had. One thing that I really liked a lot is that as it got going, we basically rented like a loft in like a marketplace, which was really nice. And once it got going, it honestly didn't even feel like we were at a show like showing our game. It just felt like we were talking to people about Foxhole, right? Like I spent a lot of time with the fellas from Iceland, just talking about like manga and anime. It was just chit chatting. It was just fun. It was just a lot of fun. Eating pie.
Yeah.
Having some drinks and talking. It was
eating pie. Is there like a further story there?
No. So KFC for the Foxhole Con event, for food, he got us like pie, like meat pie and chicken pie, and it was actually really good. It was delicious. It was really, really good.
I feel like I missed out. I'm just
it was so good.
So well, that's the PAX roundup, I suppose.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the rest of the community highlights.
Yeah.
Because we have a big dev
today's
development update.
It's not that big, man. Let's not hype it up.
Well,
honestly,
it's actually there's a lot. Let's
see. Let's go to community highlights. Thank you. So this is really cool, by Mummy. I thought this was really cool because this is like an OC Warden character, but I like the fact that like we have like original characters that happen several times, and this is a new style, and it's kind of like there's a little bit of history behind it. I think it's such a neat illustration.
What's that?
What is going on?
I don't know. Sorry for
someone
the
is like banging on the walls of our studio.
Apologies for the sound.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not sure, something just happened outside, but
I don't know if that'll be picked up, but
hopefully
it
not.
certainly shocked us.
Yeah.
I thought. Anyway, just getting back
of all
to
the art styles that we've seen, it's rare to sort of see a new style, and because everything's been covered before that, if someone does something, usually it's been covered either a year ago or 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But this style I certainly haven't seen before, which is very cool.
particularly the one on the right side there. I think it looks like particularly neat. It reminds me of like, I don't know. There's some like comic, like web comic illustrations that are sort of like that. Anyway, I thought it was quite nice. Next one by Big Mac Gaming. Big Mac Gaming has been doing a couple of designs for Foxhole for a while now, but this time
It's a bomber and a fighter. Right?
decided to tackle planes,
Yep.
which is 100% not confirmed.
I don't know if this was the person, but someone like a couple of months ago or like a month ago was looking around in the lore channel for images of the planes that we have crashed around in Stone Cradle.
It might have been, yeah, it might have been.
So
I'm
maybe-
not sure. I know that that Russian player that also does those pretty amazing schematics. I forgot his name. I cannot pronounce his name actually. You know the one like very clean vector art. He also did.
Oh, the ships and the submarines
ships.
and
Yeah,
stuff
exactly.
Like that.
I think he was like looking into those as well. So I'm not sure who it was that you were referring to. Yeah, but he also did some pretty cool stuff. I like this ones. Like, I don't know, there's some quality of like things drawn on paper that is always neat.
Yeah.
And last but not least, well, of course, we have to first talk about Toronto's, which
do we have to?
I
Or?
think it's just mandatory that it's the three of us gender swapped. And
I
it's just,
totally don't cross my arms like this. All
no, totally not, absolutely not.
And I don't hunch because of the keyboard.
Yeah, and you don't wear the cap anymore, and I don't have
You know what
long
I
hair,
love?
so it's like I think it's too outdated.
You know, I
It's a
love
little
how they
outdated.
got the makeshift stand for the mic, like that styrofoam stand.
That's the detail.
like that just kills
and
it
the
for-
outlet in the back.
and the outlet like that. That kills it.
But also a really cool thing about Mulan is the UI suggestion on the top left.
Yeah.
So this is how, if you guys want to ever suggest like some UI changes, this kind of stuff is so invaluable for us to see what is the thought process that you're going through. And it makes sense when I look at that, like put the weapon, put like a big icon and the bullets that are tied to that weapon right beside it. That I think that's a really, really good idea.
I think this suggestion by Mulan spurred a lot of conversation.
I'm sure.
Yeah, the one thing that you guys need to realize is that when these high quality suggestions are made, very often they get passed around our team and it stirs up like a discussion. A lot of people start like talking about it, and you're having like an impact on the game. Like,
For sure.
It's really cool when that happens. I think a lot of it usually comes from like the subreddit because it's a good the on FOD things tend to move very
Too
fast. But the subreddit is like a really good place to add these suggestions. In fact, some of the changes that are going into update 29, the fall update,
Come from.
is straight from one of these suggestions, which we're going to get into later. It's almost like one-to-one. Like you guys asked for it, and you know it was well presented, right? And anyways, like we'll get to it.
Yeah. So you guys have to understand that like we're humans, and if something is really shiny and nice and very well presented, it will get our eyes faster than other things. We try to look at everything on Reddit. We used to look at every single suggestion on FOD. We have people that are always scanning the suggestions, particularly when we have a particular like topic that we are researching. Oh, we were talking about like I don't know chat windows. Then we go into all the suggestions. So keep suggesting them, even if we don't respond. But if something really like pops up and catches our eye, it's almost inevitable that it's gonna make the rounds in the office and we're gonna talk about it. It's just the nature of who we are.
Mulan also made a very particular suggestion to me, kind of privately, with some really good examples, image examples as well, which I then posted on our company Discord, and I think like that does make a huge impact.
Yeah.
And that's two from one person who's taking a lot of effort to put something together.
Yeah.
And just it obviously catches our eye because a lot of attention to detail has been paid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that's yeah. And this is really cool. The FCL is still going. If you have one more contact, I'll talk to Akira. His Discord name is on the bottom there. As you can see, things are moving along.
Well, like if you want to catch these, they always happen on Saturday at I believe 11 a.m. EDT.
Yeah.
In the morning, so they're there every Saturday, and the matches last around 3 hours. And if you go to FOD, you'll always see when it starts, and there's usually at least one stream going. So, yeah.
So this is really exciting. I cannot wait to see who is gonna be the big champion this time. There's a lot of good teams.
Yeah, I'm really happy that for a while I wasn't sure that the FCL would be happening again, but I actually am really happy that it is, because I think it's a really good stage for players that are like hyper competitive, right? And like Foxhole itself has never been a hyper competitive game. There is a competitive aspect to it, and you're doing things in the game that are competitive, but the end goal is not hyper competition. But we know that there are players out there that do want that, and I think the FCL sort of like fulfills that role, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the only disappointment is that UBGE lost first match. So
Represent.
yeah, I know. I'm like,
They
well,
did not represent.
Did not represent. Come on, guys. Vamos lá, galera. Tem que melhorar. É pra ganhar, pra perder essa porra aqui.
I have no idea what that meant, but
You could have just buried us all and we wouldn't have even known.
Yeah, UBGE want to mention is the we were talking about this at PAX. They are the oldest colonial clan that's still active.
Yeah,
right?
that is still active. Yeah. And constantly active and constantly helping new players as well, which is something that again we always try to praise as much as we can. Like, which by the way, congratulations on you guys on the community, because we actually had a lot of people coming to us on PAX saying like, hey, I dropped into the game, I knew nothing, and I start asking around, and people start showing me the ropes and how to play the game. And it was like, oh, it's one of the nicest communities out there. Certainly those people are not on FOD every day, but sure. But they were like, in game, you guys are so nice and so good and helping everybody, making sure that the players, we know that we have some like problems with like our first time user experience. So thank you, like from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for like always helping new players, making sure that when we do have sales and when we have like a new influx, people are being taught and are moving along and are having a great first time experience. I really, really do appreciate it. Like, I'm being very honest. Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, that's it.
Cool.
Let's move on.
Yeah, for development update. Thank you very much.
Update. Yes. So let's get on with it. We're gonna talk about the fall update, but before we do that, Matt, can you switch away? I actually just want to discuss really briefly about like the big picture, right? Because I think this is something that is really important. That I think often, if there is like a disconnect or like misunderstandings, a lot of it is due to us sort of like having a better understanding of what the end goal is, but players not necessarily having that picture. And I can see how the concerns of players are much more like immediate in the now, which is understandable because you're playing the game now, right? But really, if we were to take a step back, like 3 years ago, our goal was to make this game a game in which you're working with hundreds of players to try to play out a war story that is made by the players, right? That's been our number one goal from the beginning. And for this war story that is played out, to have the beats, to have the kind of like narrative that resembles what a real World War II history might have looked like, sort of like an alternate World War II history. And I think that everything that we're putting into the game since then, since it was just 50 players that were fighting across a bridge in that first version that we launched up until like update 26, where we had like 1,500 players all in the same world, where it was all on the same map. Everything that we have put in is to get closer to that goal. When we get to 1.0, it's where we really want that goal to be fulfilled as much as possible. It will never be a perfect game. Nothing is perfect. There's always going to be problems. Even 1.0 is not going to be perfect. But our hope is that when we get to 1.0, we can say, okay, we were able to get all the big things in there, all the tools that players need to feel like they're playing out this real history, right? And just to think back some of the things that we've done, like going, first of all, having a sense of like many aspects of the war. In the combat prototype, they were fighting across a bridge, and that was it. There was no concept of logi. There was no concept of a supply line.
Oh, yeah.
We added that in, right? And then from there, some other big things, the world conquest, where you were no longer just fighting in a single region. Everyone was fighting in the same war. You know, again, it was to add to that goal, right? In update 20, we revamped the world so that the towns felt more like towns. And, you know, again, this is to add to that story that you guys are making every time you fight in a war. And update 26, it added a lot to that. But one of the things is that because, well, first of all, I would like to talk a little bit about that. Adding meaning back to the resource game, right? Why that's important in that long goal. Because if you think about real World War II, right? Like resources were a contention, and if that does not matter in the game, then you know we've like failed at that goal. At 1.0, that part of the story is going to be missing, right? If we didn't merge all the maps so that they're seamless, you're still going to feel like you're sort of going between these weird like levels that don't actually match up. Again, that's going to be missing from the game, right? If we didn't extend the logic game to include more choice, like the flatbed truck, the cranes, and these sorts of things, that part of the narrative of like being a logic player with multiple options is not going to be there, right? But what tends to happen sometimes is that as we're moving more and more towards the end goal, sometimes that might cause some problems for the game now, right? For the game, like as much as like the big picture we're pushing forward with the big picture, there's bound to be cases where we're going to step on the current game in a negative way that's going to impact the gameplay of players in the short run, right? And then we have to go back and fix it, right? But I just wanted to like make sure that that's, you know, something that we're constantly thinking about, because we're not just sort of looking at the next update and being like, let's make a bunch of changes, and then we sort of just keep doing that for many years and sort of remaining in this early access phase until like forever, right? Like we don't want to be there forever. We want to have a destination point that we actually reach, right? And that's why it's important that we take some chances, have some risks, right? And yeah, I just wanted to sort of reiterate that, because we kept making that clear at the beginning, but I feel like it's important to like, remember the big picture, right?
And I think it's also important to say, and this is something that we have said before, the game is very actively in development. It is not done. And it is early access. And I would say if you're just not having fun, take a break for a little bit and come back, because things are going to change. Like, no doubt things will change.
Yeah.
And so, and that's not an excuse or anything. It's just the reality of how things are done. Unless we make changes that we are uncomfortable with, we can never get to what we're trying to accomplish. So
Cool.
with that, let's make some uncomfortable changes.
Yes, more uncomfortable changes. This is the roadmap we showed last time, and just sort of to show where we're at. We're at the fall update now, and some of the goals, just to start walking through some of this that we had for the fall update. Like I said last time, halfway through summer, we sort of stopped and said, okay, like, maybe we maybe we like broke some things, and we started a conversation with a lot of players, especially players that are still playing the game, and we want to hear from those players to see what those issues are. So one of the goals we had is to try to like address some of those issues, and then another goal, you know, again, the spawn system is another one of those big things that right now it's really silly. The star-based system, right? Causes all these problems that make this war feel like very strange in some ways, right? That's something that we want to address for a long time. And number 3 there, some better support for wars that are long. And we sort of like are there's this, it's gonna be hard to describe until we get to it, but because the wars are longer now, the grind tends to be a bit longer. And we want to try to make adjustments in the game so that players are feeling progress on a more frequent basis, as opposed to just these long grinds to try to take a town and then you either take it or you don't, right? We want to make the world a bit more like granular, so you are feeling like you're making progress more often, but I'll get to that. And then also that 4th point there, with the artilleries, this is like sort of tied into number 1, which I'll get to, but a part of this also is just that we didn't want this update to just be like fixing systems and fixing problems. We wanted to add in something that was kind of fun too, right? So that's why that 4th point is there. So first I'll talk about some of the balance and quality of life changes. And again, one thing I do want to stress is that a lot of this stuff is a step, right? It's not going to fix everything. It's not going to make everything perfect, but we're hoping that this is a step forward, right, in some of those goals. So first of all, key changes to the economy. First of all, production parts are gone. You no longer need them to produce your vehicles. You can just go up to a vehicle factory and make your vehicles.
Nice.
So this was probably one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we've heard from players, is that the barrier to entry for things like a tank are just too high, especially if you're not playing in a clan. If you're one player, you don't want to make a pack of 5 tanks. You just want to make one, right? Now, our whole reasoning behind making players make 5 at a time, but for a few reasons. One of those reasons is that we want to push into the idea of sort of longer term planning, making things in bulk, as we do with the items. But there's going to be another route that we're going to take in accomplishing that goal. And right now, in the meantime, what we want to do is we want to give players back the choice to just make a single tank if they want to.
So keep in mind that things that you're seeing right now are set up for things that are to come.
Yeah, it's sort of like we want to add back in the choice that we took away, right?
Yeah.
But then to accomplish that other goal we want, we're not going to take away anything to accomplish that goal. We're going to add in a new option to try to go for that goal, right? The next thing is your tank ammo is no longer going to require sulfur. So this is the...
What is it?
Everything's fine.
So do you guys have sound?
If you guys can hear us, it seems like they can.
Yeah.
Nobody has said anything.
Cool. Well, I'll continue.
Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, we have
I guess
sound. Sorry.
It's probably local.
So, yeah, to again go back to that feedback of the barrier to entry to things like tanks are too high for players that aren't working in a big group like a clan, right? And again, so your basic tank ammo is no longer going to require sulfur, right? So fielding a tank should be a lot easier, right? There's going to be 30% more crude oil in the world. Again, increasing the opportunity that a player that previously didn't have access to things like a tank will, now be able to have access to it. And mortars and howitzers will now have ammo types that don't require sulfur. So again, this is going back to that that same like feedback is that we want to give players more. We don't want to take away the strategic aspect of the resources. We want to add choice, right? So that if you don't, if you're not hooked into that part of the game, you don't feel like you're missing out on these things that you used to have, which again has been the thing we've been hearing so over and over again, is that all the fun stuff that I used to do is no longer like available. We want to add back some of that fun stuff, but do it in a way where there's choice, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Some of the game balance changes that I'm going to blast through. There's not much to talk about here, but we want to give some buffs to the half track, the light tank, the landing APC especially, which we've kind of like heard this over and over again, that these vehicles are not worth their cost. Right? So
let's make it worth it.
Yeah, let's make it worth it, right? And just sort of run through like an example here. And, I do want to mention that these are not the only changes coming, because I don't want people to see this and be like, oh, that's it, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be more things. And also in the dev branch, we're still going to be making tweaks, right? So if there is something that we've missed, it may come now, it may come in the next update. Again, this is a step forward. And just to sort of like have like an example here of, again, the thing we've heard so much is that the barrier to entry is too high for something like a tank. So now you can see here, to field one tank, you no longer need 700 refined materials. It's only 140. You don't need the extra step. You don't have to go to the construction yard. You don't need a flatbed truck. You don't need a crane.
Yeah.
The ammo can be produced from salvage.
Yeah.
And there's going to be 30% increase in chance of getting fuel for your tank, right? So we really hope that this will be a step forward in helping to restore back that part of the game. But we're being very careful too, because another thing that I want to mention is I don't want to go in a circle, right? We were at this point before update 26 where resources, they didn't mean anything. I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
I want to move forward, right?
They're still meaningful. They're still
meaningful.
valid,
They're
but
still
we're
valid.
trying to reintroduce these elements that a lot of the player population thought that they were like too gated, too hard.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we let's all try to keep that in mind, because there are players that like the feedback that we heard was that people like the strategic aspect.
Well, and not only players, but like we consider that as an important part of the game as well. I think strategy is important.
Talking about the end goal that we said at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's a part of the end goal.
Yeah.
Right. So that's that part. And we're going to talk about some of the quality of life changes that we're going to be putting in. And again, this is based on a lot of the feedback we've heard from you guys. Restructured lodgy towns. Matt, you can take this one away. I'm just going to blast through these points.
Yeah, just get through the points, because I have already talked about this in the blog. If you want to get into detail, I want to get in the blog. And one of the big things is that when we decided on a lot of the lodgy elements, the fact that there were going to be lodgy towns, the construction yards, the cranes, all that stuff, we'd already rebuilt the world at that point, so we had to sort of retrofit these places into places where, in a manner that we would be able to get them done on time. And it didn't quite work out in every case. I think, there was a few of them that I was able to get to and I was able to audit and be like, no, this isn't going to work. But I definitely, we weren't able to get to all of them. So now I have gone through personally all of them, and I'm testing them with Jeremiah, who will tell me if something isn't working, and we're going to make sure that these are good. Now, a lot of people have looked at this image previously and have been like, you need to get rid of those trees. I don't think the trees are going to be a problem. You guys will see if they are in Dev Branch really a problem. We'll talk about it. I'm open to talk about it. And that's a big deal. When we're in Dev Branch and we're looking at these things, if you guys see things that I might have missed in terms of how they work, and I mean really, not just like a pet peeve or something, then we're gonna
what
adjust.
counts as a pet peeve, Matt?
one person complaining about something, like why isn't this structure next to this other structure, etc., that kind of thing. But long story short, I really want to improve the usability of these spaces, because I think that they are the most high traffic areas, and they cannot be cramped. You cannot be getting caught on little props. You cannot be dealing with flow of traffic in a bad way constantly. It won't work. So that's the goal there. Go to the dev blog, read the post that I made. I break down exactly what I did different between the two lodgy towns.
So those tiny little barrels on the top right there, they're not going to be there.
No, they're there,
Okay.
but they're not in the way. That's the,
Moving on to crates and stockpiles. I think we also discussed most of this in the blog, so I won't really go through it again. But this was the feedback that came from the subreddit. I think that it's almost like a direct implementation of it, but basically showing what's in a crate, showing the limits on how much can go into a stockpile. These, and also showing the quantity of items inside a crate. These are all things that that they're all small things, but they're important things that affect the day-to-day operations of a Logi player, and hopefully smoothing this over will help with some of that. Next up here. So this one is inventory source tabs, right? So this is structure now. Again, this is addressing some of the frustrations that we've heard about, like having to constantly be having to submit things and then having to like pull them back out using things like the refinery, right? So this is gonna basically it's at the structure screens in the inventory. There's gonna be a tab that lets you choose between the source of where you're gonna be drawing things from, right? And the most important thing here is the resource containers at the refinery, right? So that you don't have to submit them and then like pull out the raw resources out from the refinery and then resubmit them back in, right? You can pull straight from it. So, again, this is the thing we've heard like a million times, right? And I think for quality of life, this is a big one, Matt.
yeah.
You haven't talked about this yet, right?
No, I haven't talked about this at all.
Let's see here.
I want to preface this by saying like this isn't like a fully like interactive like video tutorial with voice acting and all the stuff that you might expect. It is simply a rework of the existing style of tutorial that we have. I took a look at a lot of feedback about what didn't work from people in FOD, and I worked with Jeremiah again, and we architected this new version. There are a couple of really key features. Number one is there's going to be clear direction. We put these big, old, fat, painted arrows on the ground to make sure that people know where to go. The tutorial signs are easier to read. We put in some new stuff to make it so that they're easier to read and easier to understand. They're also in your way. So as a new player, you literally can't miss them, which I think is going to be a big deal. There are far more topics covered. You'll have a full area to practice with resources, with mines, with fuel, with all the different logi structures. There's going to be tons more tools like medical and my brain just farted. There's going to be water vehicles and beaches so that you can practice using the water vehicles without stakes. You know what I mean? So you can practice landings. Not all vehicles are going to be present. This is key because we still want you to play the game too. To discover a lot of things. But all the different variations of things are going to be available to practice with. And we also organize better on our sides to make sure that this stuff can stay up to date a little more. And that was a big deal. And Jeremiah and I were really clear on what we wanted to cover while we could. The original tutorial was built by me and Adam when we had a little bit of downtime, and so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to update this and we're just going to go forward because it needed a lot of work. So the other key thing is there'll be a lot more tools for player training. So if players want to run boot camps and stuff, there's so much more available now that you can actually cover as opposed to what there was previously. And some of the roadblocks that were in the way are now gone. So I hope this is better, and we'll only try to keep improving. And for now, while we can't do like a really big tutorial because things are changing so much, we can still make sure that this one has everything that you need.
Nice.
Cool.
I'm very happy with that. Particularly, I'm very happy because if people were helpful before training new people, and I think this is going to be great.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to features and content, right?
Yeah.
So this is not a big feature update like update 26 was, like update 20 was, but there's a couple of neat things in here. And let's just walk through it.
Yeah.
Right. First of all, is the new artillery ammo. And by artillery, I mean your mortars, your howitzers, and your field artillery, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to be kind of cool. Many of these types do not require sulfur or components, reducing scarcity on these weapons. So going back to what I said earlier, we want players, and I'll go ahead and sort of show you what the ammo types are. Again, we want players to be able to use these items again, and we want it to be less of a black and white thing. We can't use this item because we don't have sulfur, right?
Yeah.
If you have sulfur, you can do some of it.
Yeah, but you cannot do something else if you don't have it.
That's right. So we're keeping the strategic aspect while making sure that the barrier is low enough that players can still do the things that they find fun, right? And just to walk through a few examples of these, you can see all the types there: flare, smoke, shrapnel, green ash, arm piercing, heavy explosive. We'll walk through how some of these work. With the first one, the flare. This is a cool one, Matt.
Yeah.
Want to talk about this one a bit?
Yeah, so this is going to work a little bit differently than exactly what you see here. But basically, when you fire the flare, it is going to illuminate. Not only is it going to illuminate nighttime, but it is also going to illuminate people who may not be in your normal line of sight, and that'll be really interesting. So if you're doing a night raid, throw about a few of these out, and no one's going to be able to hide from you in the dark.
Cool. Howitzer smoke ammo. So Howitzer smoke ammo is not just going to, one of the main features of it, obviously, is it's going to cover a huge area with smoke, which will turn off the AI defenses, or rather, the AI defenses won't work in there, and
Players won't have line of
players
sight.
can just charge in and get into a little bit of like a melee battle, or at least like a close range battle. Shotguns, anyone, will be quite useful in this. And they will cause a bit of damage as well. So it's not just smoke. It's actually useful as a little bit like a normal howitzer shell, but it just won't be as powerful against like things like structure.
Because if you get hit by a flying piece of metal across, several miles, it's probably going to hurt.
It doesn't really matter if it's smoke or not.
Yeah, I think you're gonna get hurt from that, right? But the thing we're hoping to see is entire areas, front lines being covered in smoke, and sort of like being able to change the battlefield in that way. Right?
That'd
So
be
this
very
is something that we're really excited about. Another one here is the green ash.
It's a large area.
This one is going to be interesting because
Yeah.
I think that gas mask filters are probably going to be in high demand, right? Again,
It's gonna become the new currency of
Yeah.
Foxhole.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're really interested in just one of the reasons why we've done this, besides being able to reach our goals with the economy, is that, well, first of all, we've heard these ideas many times over the last couple of years. And I think another thing is that one of the things that we want to do is always keep the combat fresh, right? And making sure there's like new ways to fight, and sort of making sure that things don't remain static for too long, right? So this is going to be another one that's pretty cool. And finally, here's some of the remaining ones here.
They're very similar to the tank.
Yes.
The tank variations. So if you know how they work, expect it to be the same, but from a mortar and a field artillery.
Yeah. So if you look at this, here is a table of all the things, all the ammo types in the game, the requirements, their function, and the balance of these things are going to be changing on a constant basis over the next while, because we won't really even know how effective these things are 100%. We can make some speculation, we can try to tune it, but really we don't know what's going to be like overpowered and what's not going to be overpowered. So that's something that's going to be exciting for us to all like figure out over the next couple of updates, and hopefully we'll be able to settle on some things that work by the end of the year.
So
to
this
coincide with some other cool stuff that I think
So these things could change. The requirements could change.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that goes with everything. right now. But a lot of this stuff is setting us up for what we're doing in the winter update,
Nice.
which I think it'll make sense when we get there, right? So that's the ammo types. What else is there? Let's see. Oh yeah, we talked about this already. Faction specific field artilleries. These are cool to see. Finally, these are one of the some of the oldest models we've had in the game, especially the field artillery. And
Yeah.
I was playing around with the Warden one yesterday, and it's really, really cool to just finally have the Warden variant in there. It just feels more like a complete game.
I really love the new Colonial field artillery. I feel like it looks very powerful. It just looks like a cannon.
Yes. Cool. And then the buses, the troop bus. So this one is okay. This was a fan favorite of the relic vehicles, and we also felt that troop transport is an important part of the game. It's not necessarily some vehicle that everyone is going to use, but we definitely saw the relic bus being used to great effect several times in the game. Players like to play as like the shuttler of troops to the front. So we're finally doing the faction specific versions of this. It works the same as the relic bus, and I believe it is in the tech tree. In the tech tree. I think this is like you guys asked for it, so you're gonna get it. And it's not quite the return of the relic vehicles, but at least it's a little bit of a taste of what was there.
Also, this is kind of one of those features where it's like it probably won't be necessary for anything, but it's there.
Well, at the same time, this is one of those we've talked about this before. It's also like a pipeline thing, right? It's not like we worked on the bus instead of fixing some Logi stuff, right? It's a pipeline thing where there's certain members of the team that have time. Certain members of the team in a part of the pipeline that has time to work on this. So we're able to say, okay, let's schedule in something that this team member is able to work on. Right?
Yeah.
But that same team member would not be able to work on like some Logi, like quality of life thing as an example, right? So like it's very important that you realize that, because I think often it's easy to see this and be like, oh, well, why'd you spend time on this when you could have spent time on that? It's like, well, if we didn't spend time on this, it would have been nothing.
Yeah, they just would have been doing nothing.
Yeah, so it's either like this or nothing, right? So that's that.
That's pretty cool. I actually like the
It's like
buses.
we need to take a break. This is like
So let's just take a moment.
What?
Don't worry, there's more.
Not a lot more.
There's still more.
We're close to the end.
Yeah,
I told you this was
very
large.
close to the end.
So let's just take a second.
I think
take
this is the
breather.
very first time, Matt, that I'm actually kind of like tired halfway through.
Well, we're more than halfway through. Usually we're in the
Like,
middle of like Q&A by now.
In the history of streams, I've never felt this way. It's kind of
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. But anyways,
All right, let's
just,
move.
Let's
Let's go for
just
it.
keep going. Yeah. Spawn system. New spawn system. Okay, so this one, that goal is incorrect. I did a typo. Just ignore that goal.
That is not the goal.
That's not the goal. That's the goal for the next slide, right? So,
Okay.
What is the goal?
the goal is that we want to get rid of a lot of the crap. Yeah, I'll start here, right? Getting rid of a lot of the crap in the current system. Home bases, the infinite spawning, that's one of our goals is to, we know players have hated this for a long time. We've hated it for a long time, but to get rid of that was actually incredibly difficult. It seems like a simple thing, but as you know, HP, you drew the flow chart on. You made a flow
I
chart.
should probably post that flow chart one day.
We should post it at some point. But
It's a hell of a flow chart.
It's a spaghetti of like
Basically,
if this, then that. It's so complicated.
the amount of corner cases and spawning is huge, right? And that's why we couldn't get rid of this for so long, but we finally took the time to fix this. So we're getting rid of the star towns. The border forts have been removed, and they're going to be repurposed for something else that we're going to talk about in the next slide. But basically, there's no longer going to be any borders at the forts. So hopefully,
Any
lot
forts
of
at the border?
any forts, pre-placed forts at the border.
You said any borders at the forts.
If
I
there
tell you I was tired, right?
if there are any forts near a border, it's not for the same reason that it had been previously.
Yeah.
That's pretty much
Yeah.
like
And they're not going to be close to the border.
yeah, and they're not going to be close to the border. So.
Yeah, so I think this should help to get rid of some of the magic, some of the weird, sort of awkward things that happen right now, like players, you know, to speak to like both of these, like those situations where a border fort turns into a star base in the middle of nowhere, and it gets like surrounded, and also some other not so great type of strategies like going behind the enemy line to capture their forts, and you know these really things these things that sort of have been like a pain in the ass for like the longest time, right? So, and then we're going to come up with a new system, which is the deployment system, and this is a complicated system, and I would almost like to talk about this outside of the stream, but the two sort of takeaways from this system that I'll mention right now is it's more of a player-driven replacement for the home bases, and very complicated, but the summary of it is that players will have to station themselves at towns, and that effectively increases the amount of players that can fast travel there, essentially from the home regions,
base,
right? So the whole underlying concept behind this is that players can fast travel to where there are troops, right? So it's like this abstraction of moving troops around the map, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to be able to get, if you want to be able to sort of move your like army somewhere, you have to actually walk there. You station yourself there, and then slowly over time, more players are going to be able to fast travel there.
So the idea is that you cannot just magically, just because
Yes.
one guy got one region,
Exactly.
one single soldier or two soldiers got one region, suddenly 60 people can travel magically from
Exactly,
home base.
yes,
The idea is that those numbers will have to grow slowly by adding more players and saying, okay, you traveled here, so
That's
this
right.
is your base now. Oh, there's more players in this base. This base is more important. Therefore, more people can travel,
Yeah.
and it's a compounding effect.
Yes.
Like
Exactly. So it will really help to get rid of the case where you flip a fort, and it turns into like a Trojan horse type of like portal
literally,
where
just soldiers explode out.
everybody
Of it.
explode out of it, and it's really annoying in the back line. Like you're not going to do that anymore because things are going to take time. So that's one of the outcomes. So our goal was to fix some of these really awkward type of cases with like spawning. Another thing that is really silly right now is that because you can only fast travel to the to your home base, you end up in these really silly circumstances where even if you were like you had spent some time in trying to build like defenses around a town, right? Like if you and a couple of players spent some time trying to fortify a town, but then you leave, right? And then later the enemy comes and attacks it, you have to spawn at your star base, walk for 5 minutes to that town that you fortified, that you were there, right? To walk there. You have to sneak into your own town to try to stop like the enemy, right?
Yeah.
Which is really silly. If you were fortifying that town, you should be able, essentially there are troops stationed there, right?
Yeah.
Is the idea. So you should just be able to travel there to stop the attackers.
Yeah.
right?
So another thing that this system will help is prioritizing that areas in which are seeing a lot of activity will be the areas that people will be directed to anyway, and the areas in which people, the other players will know. Okay, if I go there, I know there are other players. They're not just spawning at a home base in the back line and then having to walk all the way to the front.
That's right.
Right. If there's a lot of players in a more nearby town that are assigned to that base,
Yes.
that means that you can spawn there.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, if you totally like ignored a town,
Yeah.
completely ignored for the whole game, and the enemy, if you ignore one side of your line, and the enemy like gets there, you're gonna have to take some time. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
you can't just simply, now that the enemy is attacking, now we can all enforce, go
Yeah.
there and defend it.
Yes.
Like, no. If you want to go there and defend it, you gotta walk there.
Exactly. Great. So there's a lot more to that, and this is a system that is gonna take a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work to get this in, and it's gonna require a lot of balancing, a lot of like fine tuning.
Oh yeah, the numbers
So
are definitely gonna change.
if there is something that we have to ask with the system, is that you don't freak out if it doesn't work perfectly at the beginning, because I can tell you right now it's gonna require work. But we sort of rather want to get started on this sooner rather than later,
Yeah.
right? Frontier bases, I'm going to go over this really quickly, but essentially it's a replacement of the forts that can be built by the players. There's a lot of special conditions that are surrounding this, because forts being able to build this at the border first thing that's going to pop into everyone's mind is, well, I can think of a million ways of how that can be cheap, right?
Yeah.
But the next feature that I'll talk about should help to explain how that's not going to be, how a lot of those cases are not going to work, right? So
And we've already sort of teased it in this first image.
Yeah.
Sorry? Which?
Nothing. Go ahead.
Go on.
Okay, cool. So, region zones, right? This is the one where the goal is to better support for long war. So what we want to do is we want to first I'll say what it is, and I'll talk about some of the reasoning behind this. Regions are broken up into zones. Essentially, zones have a border that is actually exact now. So if you previously, the equivalent of this was the named locations, right? But you didn't know where they started or the end. They're just sort of like you walk close to one and you're there. But now these regions are specifically split up on the map, right? And also we're going to show the owner of each of the zones. Each zone has a unique name. Matt, if you want to just really quickly talk about the new scheme for the two types of names.
Yeah, so there are now, like, you guys are really familiar with all the different areas in the map. You know, you talk about like Transient Valley and Abandoned Ward and all the different places in the world. And now they are either going to be classified as a major, in other words, a region zone, or minor, which is just kind of like a
Lore
yeah, just like a determination just to help you coordinate a little more, like fine tune. So, you know, now Plaza is a minor's region, a minor
area.
a minor area of
ward.
Abandoned Ward. Bloody Bowery is a minor area of Kirkdale. It's the way that it's going to kind of like be presented, and each of those major regions, which are going to be associated with either a fort or base and or a town hall. So they are either a town or a major location in the world.
Cool. And every zone will have a base, right? And that's either a town hall or a fort, right? So this is where we've repurposed the forts to be in these locations. But the forts are going to be changed in such a way where their costs, their facility costs, and generally their like behavior is going to be much more like a town hall. We're going to like remove all the weird magical parts of it. Like they only cost like 50 mats, or they're not. They're going to cost a lot more now. The facilities are going to cost the normal cost of a facility. So basically, let's talk about why we want to do this, right? We want to add more sense of progression in conquering the world, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of it being like, okay, you walk into a region and there's like one or two towns, and you have to just sort of take like spend the whole day. You either get to town or you don't. Right? That there is more of like when you're in between these larger goals of taking towns, there's these smaller goals, right?
Yeah.
And another reason is that we wanted when we redesigned the world in Update 26, there was a lot of extra space in there, and we knew we wanted to come back around to make like better use of the world. And rather than making the world larger than it is, instead we're almost trying to make it larger by making better use of the space.
That's more dense in a way.
More dense.
And
yeah.
one thing to point out, which I meant to mention while I was talking about it, is that like this is only like a really initial pass to make sure that everything is kind of like, in a good place. and works. There is going to be more to this feature in the future. So,
which is the next point there.
yeah, great, perfect. I see
Yeah.
what's going on. And so, like, you know, there's going to be a lot more polish and a lot more stuff to come. So if it's not totally working for you, this update, like, know that we are going to be expanding this in the future and taking into account how it worked in this fall update.
Yeah. So to add to that, this is laying the groundwork for something bigger that is coming in the winter update that we think is going to make the world a lot more cool. And it's something we talked about in the far past before that we never got around to doing. We're going to come back around and finally doing that thing. So we're going to see how this works out. And I think Rohan wanted to put this in here, or someone put it in there. Support for the API is coming in the future for all you web app developers.
So things that there might be, like with this update, there might be some things that are not either working as intended, or the data might not be as clear right now. But we have not forgotten about the API. It's just that it's a little bit hard for us to do right now.
Yeah. Cool. And here's another picture of how the world is going to be split up into region zones. So that's pretty much it. Again, fall update is a step forward. It's not necessarily the biggest update in the world, but we hope that these step forwards will help lead us to the winter update.
You guys can ask a couple questions. We're not going to spend a ton of time answering questions. We got a lot of work to do. But I'm going to be on FOD right after the stream as well. But start asking some questions. I did want to say one more thing about the region zones. Each region will have between 7 to 11 zones, depending on the region, depending on the complexity of the region. So, you know, a Deadlands is probably going to have a lot more than like Lockmore. If that makes sense.
Oh, Lockmore biased.
Yeah, because it's empty. There's not a lot in it.
A lot more bias.
I don't have access to my Twitter right now, so I will answer it.
Repost the question.
I will answer it later. So do region zones have any effect on usual gameplay?
Oh,
we missed that entire thing. Wasn't in the slide.
We missed that entire thing that we said we would talk about.
Yeah,
Thanks for
and it wasn't there.
question.
I'm glad you asked that because I forgot to.
Yeah, I knew there was something missing.
You remember when we talked about the forts and how they were going to be repurposed?
So if you want to, this is one of the biggest screw ups.
I know. I can't believe we didn't talk about this.
Okay, so if you
can you go back to the
let's go back to it. This was embarrassing. I guess we'll just stay here. That's fine. So if you want to, you can only build a frontier base, which, as we mentioned, is a replacement of the forts, of the border forts. If you own the region that is on the other side of the border, and the enemy owns the region on the side that you're trying to build it on, and it has to be in the travel area. So you can't just walk around and build these frontier bases in all these cheap locations, which I know a lot of you are going to try to do at nighttime, especially, right? We're clamping down really hard to make sure that the frontier bases are there to serve the purpose to stop the region lockdowns, but to not be exploited for all these other things, right? I believe they will have a decay rate that's very fast as well, so you can't just use it to like try to wall off like a travel zone, like you guys are going to try to do. I know you guys are going to try to do that, right? And that is, so right now that is the gameplay purpose. But Matt, we've talked about some other possibilities on how this can be hooked into the gameplay in the future. But this is just going to lay the groundwork for now. It should hopefully help feel like there's more progress. When you're conquering a territory, it's going to help when you're moving into, help us have a way to move into a neighboring territory without it being really cheap. There's more to come. Right?
So in a nutshell, in order to build a frontier base at a border, you need to have the neighboring border. We're correct?
Yeah, with some extra rules around it.
Yeah, with some rules. I mean, but in a nutshell, that is the big gameplay impact as of right now.
Right. And it's also cool to just be able to visualize the front line between like the blue and the green. Right?
Yeah, it's really, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the bases are going to be very useful on their own.
Yeah.
So, a couple people have asked about like ore breaker roads near bridges. Yeah, I think those are fixed. I don't know. I'll check. I'll make sure. Will the new spawn system adversely affect troops attempting to create a new front between two regions?
Yeah. So, so what we're doing is we're putting in a lot of like levers, so we can fine tune the way this works on things like frontier bases. We have, I think right now, like at least 8 different levers that we can tune to make sure that we strike the fine balance between players being able to start a new front, players being able to like defend a front where they were at, and then also preventing cheap cases of just being able to suddenly teleport your entire team to like a new location, right? So the answer to what most of these questions, the answer to most of these questions is going to be, we're going to have to fine tune the numbers to make it work right.
I think the even more realistic answer is that we don't want to break anything if you're doing something that we don't consider cheap, like for instance teleporting the whole team for like through a back entrance on the other team. Do we consider that cheap? Is that the kind of stuff that we're trying to stop? But advancing your army, it's part of the game.
We hope it's gonna work.
We hope it's gonna work. Will it break? It might, because we might have tweaked the numbers wrong, but we're keeping a very, very close eye on the statistics of what's happening, and also we're gonna be keeping a very close eye on the feedback of the players as well as they are in the war, so we have a chance to adjust them to minimize any unforeseen results. Because the problem with unforeseen results is that they are unforeseen.
One way to look at this spawn system, because sometimes it's a bit difficult to get the point across, it's somewhat like being able to vote on where your previous star-based functionality is. You're sort of voting on by stationing yourself somewhere. You're voting where fast travel can happen.
So
right?
in the normal gameplay, it should work similar to what used to happen. Like if you have players coming in and out and a lot of people in the region, you should be able to travel in as long as you don't reach the maximum for the server.
Yes, that's right.
That still works, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna ask one more question. There's a lot of like little questions about like random different like features. Just ask me again on FOD if you want. I'm not gonna go through them right now because it'll take us all day. But there is one question that there's 2 questions I wanted to ask. One is really simple. I don't know where it went. Mark, do you have any idea whether or not we're going to be going to Gamescom in next year?
I got a DM about this.
Wow, we actually had a lot of people asking us about that, even on PAX.
It was Minibar.
Right. I think he messaged me. I answered him, I thought. Anyways.
Maybe he just wants a public.
Maybe he wants public. We'll look into it. I don't know. It's expensive trip for us. But if there's enough interest, we'll look into it further, right? That's really all I can say.
I really want to go.
Everyone wants to go.
I really want to go.
Anyone does not want to go.
I think we should go to Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show and then PAX Australia.
I feel like if we go to Gamescom, we're gonna have to like draw like from a hat or something.
because it's gonna have to be a lottery in the office.
Any comment on the poor server performance that we have seen recently? From Alls. I think.
So there was actually there was a bug we introduced that causes server lag anytime the servers restart for the weekly maintenance, and we have to manually go and fix it after. And we sort of have fixed the bug internally. And we know like it's going to be fixed. So right now it's just a matter of every time it happens, we have to manually fix it, which sucks. But once the fall update rolls around, that's going to be gone. It will be 100% fixed. That specific issue is going to be 100% fixed.
Unless you're talking about some other server issues
if
that
you're
we are
talking
not
about,
aware
like,
of.
Like if you're talking about when your character starts like skipping, right? That we've been seeing. That's just outright fixed, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mark, do you have any idea when we're going to see the dev branch, when we're going to see the patch launch, anything like that?
Yes. Are we is this the end or?
Yeah, we're gonna call it.
Okay, yeah. So the dev branch is going to be later this week, hopefully Thursday, and we're aiming for mid next Wednesday as the launch date, September the 18th. Did I get that right? Hopefully I didn't. I always screw up dates. So
Let me,
I think so.
yeah, I think it's 18th, right?
let me check for you. The
Yeah.
18th is next Wednesday.
Yeah. So we'll make an announcement on that. I should have put it in the slides, but
I know.
I didn't want to hype this up too much, you know.
It's a small update.
It's just a
It's a
little
small
update.
update. Yeah. How
so-
many times have we said that this stream? Let's say it more times.
I think I think we felt like it was a really small update until today.
Yeah. Maybe it's because it's less flashy. Like internally, to be
It's
honest,
not- yeah.
internally there's a lot. Like just the whole spawn thing and map. That's already so big
It's
for us
a-
internally. But I guess front facing might not be
Exactly.
as
Front
big.
facing, it's not like, you know, we're not adding in some new tanks or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, again, I'm going to hang out in a little bit. HB, final words for YouTube, and then we'll close off.
Yeah, so if you guys have more questions, because this Q&A was so small and you're watching this on YouTube, post the questions in the comments. We're trying to answer, particularly on the first day, we're trying to answer as many as we can. If you watch this later, or if you want to ask a question any other moment, join us on the Discord. It's Foxhole, discord.gg/Foxhole. Otherwise, you can catch us every other Tuesday at 2 p.m. EST on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/FoxholeGame.
Cool. As always,
Amazing.
stay foxy. And as I
Close it.
struggle
Close
to
it.
hit the